What's up going on, everybody? Let me just fix this shit. All right. Listening to a lot of conversations recently, in fact, about this whole thing about these different types of coaches. I think it really kicked off. I think it really kicked off when FNF got their monetization taken away. I think that's when a lot of these discussions started coming up because when that happened, at least on their end of things, it sort of it took away some of their legitimacy, which in my eyes and in other coaches' eyes, that was a good thing, right? I think it helped out a number of us get our message clear to others, and we've been saying this sort of thing for a long time that they're not really telling the full story. They're not really supporting the brand of men. They're supporting their own brand, which is fine, right? Because that's just how the game goes, right? We all have to get our own. But it's the question of is at what cost? What cost are you going for your own thing? All right. And it's a it's a difficult thing, obviously, because when you're in business, you have the lure of doing what isn't necessarily your your track for the sake of making a lot of money or having views. And like I don't know those guys personally. I've not sat down with them or anything like that. And so behind the cameras, or when the cameras are off, rather, they might be completely different. They may be completely different people, but I can only see what I see. And the sad thing is that there's this old adage that says the loudest vessel is the one that is most empty. And there's a lot of loud vessels in the red pill space. And unfortunately, because they're loud and because they have a certain kind of message, a certain kind of vibe about them, it brings in a lot of attention. It really does. And when that happens, when you have like a lot of eyes and a lot of ears on certain things, it makes people think that it's real, or rather that it's true. And it's kind of like that old story about the king, and he had a well and someone poisoned the well and everyone was drinking the water from the well, except the king. And everyone's beliefs started shifting, and I think they started turning on the king or something like that. I don't remember the old story. It's really old. And everyone believed the same thing about him, but it's because they were drinking this poisonous water, and he refused to. And so, in that respect, it's the same sort of thing where just because there's a lot of people behind something doesn't necessarily mean it's real or that it's true or legitimate. And this is the power of social media, that you can get a lot of people behind you. And that just is revealing that a lot of men, a lot of males, pardon for the blasphemy, a lot of males, they don't have the discernment, they don't have the critical thinking, and they want people to do the decision making for them. They want people to think for them, and that's just the nature of things. uh, People who organize religion to a very large scale, they very much knew this. They knew the power of a large, strong voice, and they knew the weakness of the average male mind. And when you start controlling the average male mind, that's when you can start controlling especially a long time ago, that's when you can start controlling the flow and the patterns of societies. And now that's stretched into women as well. That's stretched into their minds as well. So I've mentioned this before in other streams, that it's really, really important to monitor what your mind consumes. Everything that you see and hear is consumed by your mind and stored in your subconscious. and it will affect you over time. It really will. It would be a sick experiment, but it would be interesting to see someone who knows nothing of red pill and then feed him nothing but red pill videos for a good year and then see what happens to his psychology and his behavior after that. Do you think there would be a difference? I do. I think there would be a huge difference and it wouldn't be positive. And see, that's the thing. When you go into these spaces, if you come into that in these spaces objectively, and you start looking at what these so-called coaches are doing, and they're not really coaches. I wish people would stop calling them coaches. They are content creators. They're content creators who talk about men and women. That's basically it. They're not really coaching people, and they're bringing about certain red pillisms, and it makes it seem like they're teaching people things. It makes it seem like that because they are bringing people to what, like, so like these young guys who come in, they don't know anything. So then they hear a certain something that sounds legitimate, that's backed by so-called statistics, and then they go, okay, uh, this must be real. This makes a lot of sense. Wow, that's right. So if you take a certain statement and then back it up with a study, and studies by nature have to be limited. You have to omit a lot of data because you have to be able to come to some kind of conclusions. That's the problem of having studies, especially when it comes into human behavior. If you're doing, say, a study with chemicals or biochemistry or physics, that's a little bit different. It's a little bit different because you have finite objects, you have finite liquids and gases and physical things that you can measure. It's a lot different when you take that same sort of mentality, which is the scientific method, and you try to apply it to human behavior. And when you try to apply it to human behavior, it becomes very muddy because psychology isn't clean and simple the way, say, chemistry is or physics is. It's all over the place. The human mind is really complex. It's a maze. So to then have an idea and then take some study that was done back in 1997 and apply it to this idea and say because it's a study that was done at some university, that gives it some kind of credibility, and then that makes the people who are listening for the first time not ever really listening to this stuff, at all, except now as this is the first time. And then they're like, holy shit, this sounds fucking true. Oh my gosh. Right. Because it's supported by these studies, but the studies they're not complete. Right. In order for a study to be complete, it must omit a ton of other data when it comes to human behavior. And that's really where a lot of problems arise. When it comes to human behavior. And then these guys, they have, massive followings. And that means that they have influence. And they're not taking responsibility, or they think they are taking responsibility. And this is something called like the Dunning-Kruger effect. When someone believes they are more important or they have greater skill or power than they actually do. This is a really common thing that you see amongst people who gain fame or fortune or notoriety in a very short amount of time, because it just sweeps up really really fast, and it pulls their ego with them. So they think, hey, what I'm saying here, it legitimizes. So they're like, oh, what I'm saying here, this must be real because now look at what's happening. So it's almost like they're drinking their own Kool-Aid, which is really fucked up because they're not critically thinking about what is processing in their own minds, and they're not critically thinking about what's coming out of their mouths. And they think that it's real. They think that it's producing something good. Now, I don't know if you guys have spent any time in red pill spaces. I haven't watched red pill shit in a very long time. I'm talking like way back with who was that guy? Sandman. Sandman when he was first coming about, and something TV. Oh, Solo. Yeah, Solo TV 86 or something like that. And that was my first little taste, and I was just like, I thought it was interesting. And but it's evolved. It's evolved tremendously from that point. It really has. But these guys think that they're doing something. But if you spend any kind of time, what's up, King Solar Power? We are Evolution. Hello, Zormina. If if you spend any kind of time in these spaces, you will see that there's a lot of anger. Like if you just step back, and it would be interesting, like if you haven't spent a lot of time in these spaces online, and then you just kind of jump in and observe for a little while and take a look at not really what the hosts are doing, but look at the effect that it's having in the comments, in the live comments, and see where the mindset is at. Because you can't have a statement without the mental framework happening before it. It can't happen. So it really gives a brief glimpse into the mindsets of the people that are watching these things. And depending on the channel, we're talking dozens to hundreds to thousands of people watching live and all filling in. And you watch the same things, and it's a lot of regurgitation, a lot of recycling of the same thing over and over. And as someone who works with the power of repetition, the power of drilling something into somebody's head, the power of affirmation, I work with these things on a regular basis. I know the effect. I know the power that they can have. Right? If you look at religions, right? They say, if you did something wrong in Catholicism, they say, oh, go say, 20 Hail Marys or whatever. Okay. In Buddhism, they do chants and they put it into a rhythmic structure, which makes it even more powerful. And they have this rhythm to their chanting, to their prayers, and then they count them with the beads as they're going through them over and over and over and over. Because when you do this sort of thing, it deeply affects the mind. It carves something out into the brain. And this is the difference between a content creator and a coach, because coaches understand these things, or at least I hope coaches would understand these things, is that you as a guide are one who is helping someone carve new trenches in their mind. And then if you're with a woman, pardon me, if you're with a woman, this is something that you're going to be doing with her as well. You're going to be carving new behaviors, new perspectives, new beliefs into her mind. And you'll be leading her through another layer of herself. So when someone's doing this at a mass scale, without even being conscious of this, without being conscious that they're even doing it, because I think some of them are not aware. Well, I think some are aware. And I don't know which is worse. But it's sort of like the blind leading the blind. And that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. That's not good for the brand of men. Men, we need guides and leaders that are strong, that think for ourselves. That's what's needed. We see what's happening out there. We see what's happening with society. The United States is crumbling. It's literally crumbling. We actually might be past the point of no return, meaning that we haven't developed enough families creating children in the amount of time necessary so that when they grow up, there will be enough of them to uphold society, to uphold the infrastructure, to have the jobs to run the oil rigs, the water, the electricity, the plumbing, the airlines, the railroads, shipping, all that stuff, all the things that we depend on to live, that's going to require strong young men to maintain. They're not being born now because no one's getting together, no one's getting married, and no one's having children. And yes, I'm going to blame the men. I'm going to blame the men for not doing what they're supposed to be doing, not leading themselves, and not creating what they need to do. And it's going to lead into a crumble of our society. It's already happened in China. China is past the point of no return. They're done. Their society is cooked. It's their fate is sealed. They're going to crumble. And it looks like it's going to happen to us. But perhaps we can slow it down. Perhaps we could slow it down a little bit. But this means getting off your ass and getting into your head and getting shit straight. Getting shit straight in your head. And this is the difference between a content creator and a coach. The content creator does not give a flying fuck about you. They do not care. And even in their rhetoric, they might say, we care. We care. This is why we're doing it. No, this is not why they're doing it. They're doing it for your eyeballs and your ears. That's it. They don't give a shit. As long as they get theirs, that's fine. They don't care. And there's some truth to that, right? Because you got to be cold. You got to be a little bit cold if you want to push things through. We cannot be all lovey-dovey, warm hugs and holding hands. That's just not the way the world works, unfortunately. That's the way it goes. What's up, J98? Marcus the Third. Good to see you. So really it starts with you guys, and you think that you're doing something by consuming this red pill stuff. It doesn't do anything. It makes you feel like, because you get energized. Some people get real hype watching this stuff because they feel connected in some way. But unfortunately, it's connected through suffering, through mutual suffering. And when pain can't go anywhere, it goes in two directions. Either it gets inflicted upon the self, where you see bad habits, you see destructive habits, even self-harm. Okay, maybe they drink too much, or they're cutting themselves, or doing massive loads of drugs, or whatever. Okay, or living, a very dangerous lifestyle, or something like that. Or it gets turned to the outside. And then if they can't act on it physically, right? Because we are in a society where if you do certain things, you will be punished. But some people are just like, fuck it. It comes out of the mouth. It comes out of the mouth. And where do we see that? We see that online everywhere. Go into the comment sections of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. It's all there. And so behind anger, there's always pain. Always. I mean, in this context, there's always pain behind the anger. And there's no real way to go through the pain unless you face it, unless you go through it, unless you acknowledge it and start marching forward through that, because you are on the other side. And the thing is that in these red pill spaces, like I said, they don't give a shit. They're just there for the profit. They actually, much like many religions today, they don't want you to move on. They want you to stay. They want you to stay and keep, giving penance and keep giving alms, right? Keep giving all the things that you have, your mind, your identity, your time, your energy, so that you stay, because they want addicts. They want you to remain in your state. In fact, they don't want it to get better. They want it to get worse. Staying the same, that's acceptable. But getting worse is even better. If you came in disgruntled and you stay and become infuriated, it's even better. And so if you spend weeks, months, years consuming these things, do you think your psyche is going to go from disgruntled to more easygoing towards happy or enlightened? Or do you think it's going to go from disgruntled to angry to pissed to infuriated to rage? I don't see much peace coming from these guys. The most peace that I ever see is actually within myself and men who I associate myself with, men who I respect, because I can see it in them. I can see that if their fucking house were to blow up, sure, they'd be disappointed, but it wouldn't obstruct their peace. It wouldn't change the shape of the inner pillar that's inside them. I know it. I know it for a fact because when you interact with men who are like this, you can feel it in them. You can feel it on them. It's permeates through their whole being. And it's like, yeah, this person is just solid in who they are. The world does not really affect them. This goes on, that goes on, this goes up, that goes down. It doesn't matter. There's just things happening in life. Big whoop. That's why, when shout out to Steve, he's like, like a real problem isn't a woman. Real problem isn't anything really, except his humorous example is a meteor the size of the moon coming towards the earth. Yeah, that's a pretty fucking big problem. But other than that, really anything can be dealt with. Anything can be managed as long as you have, what I call the mountain mind. Nothing moves a mountain. Nothing. This woman does this, woman does that. She says this, she says that. Your job does this, job does that. You lose your job, you get a job. The president is this, the president's that. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't, I mean, it matters out there, but it doesn't matter in here. None of that affects what's going on because you've created that world to be impermeable. It cannot be permeated. It's like fucking adamantium. Yeah, very good for you, Jay, for leaving that shit a long time ago. Yep. Now, not to say that like it's completely wrong. Like I've explained this before. It's like part of a circle. Okay. And this is something I like to bring up about these red pill guys. You listen to somebody and you can hear what they know when they're talking on a certain subject and they only go a certain distance within that subject. That tells you what they've experienced. And that's all it comes down to. So you hear someone and they're saying, man, women are trash. They're all hoes. Well, they are all hoes, but in my world, that's a different thing. They're all hoes. They all want to take you for everything. They want to take your kids. They want to take your money. They want to do this. They want to do that. Just like all these negative things, right? And that's part of reality. That's part of the circle. But because they don't mention anything else, they don't mention about being loved on. They don't mention anything about being given gifts, being written poems, love letters in the middle of the night, and then you wake up to this, on your phone. You're like, oh, nice. They're not talking about getting massages. They're not talking about spontaneous blowjobs. They're not talking about being called my Lord, my King, my God. They're not talking about hand massages, back massages, full body massages. They're not talking about coming home and their woman is wearing nothing but an apron, cooking them dinner. Your drink is already waiting for you on your table. They're not talking about any of that shit. No. What they're talking about is their experience. I mean, if you had a great experience, why wouldn't you mention it? Right? It's like if you have never been to the moon, you can't talk about what it's like to be on the moon. You can theorize about it. You can watch movies about it. You can read books about it and gain some sort of idea about it. But if you've never experienced what it's like, then you'll never be able to do it. Like I race motorcycles. So yeah, shout out to Alpine Stars. There's only a certain amount of experience within that I know. I can only speak up to the limit of what I've experienced. So I've gone through a number of tracks. I've raced fairly well, but I've never gone so hard where I felt like my life was at risk. There's guys that I know that have. They've crashed so bad that they thought they were going to die, or like a near death experience. I've never experienced that before, but there are people who have, and they can speak on it. They can speak on their experience. So if you've had this amazing experience, say with women, yet years go by, years, and you're making hundreds of videos, and barely any of them say anything good of your experience, that says to me that you've not had it. You have nothing to speak on. There's nothing under your feet in that realm. That's how I look at it. So why bother listening to someone who has never experienced something that you want to experience? They won't be able to tell you what it's like and how to get there. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, I want to get into racing," I can give them a step-by-step instruction on how to get to my point. But beyond me, right? So I'm not like a master. Okay, I'm not racing an advanced class. But beyond me, I'm gonna have to say, hey, you know what? You're gonna have to go talk to those guys over there. If you want to get your times down even further, that's beyond my knowledge. So I can't speak on that. But those guys can. They have the ability, they have the knowledge, they have the experience. So again, be careful who you listen to, because not everyone has your best interests in mind, which is also the difference between content creators and coaches. Coaches, yes, we want to make money. But at the heart of what we're doing is a drive to help people. I was helping people in the space of men's mental health long before I was ever getting paid for it. And I was doing it because I was paying it forward, because there were some men who helped me. They helped me out of the goodness of their hearts. And they were just there to help. That's all. They were just there as guides. And so after I came to a realization about myself and I learned how to learn, I understood how to understand. Then I said, no, I'm not going to just take this and run. I'm going to turn around and start giving it back to men. And it wasn't until a few years later that I said, all right, enough has built up where people are asking me enough questions where I said, you know what? I need to make a business out of this. I think it could go even further. And of course, that doesn't make me cold. That doesn't make me mean. That doesn't make me completely self serving, because the goal behind it is to help. And these coaches, these content creators, they don't give a shit. They do not give a shit about you. And it really comes about when you can hear what they talk on. You can hear what they talk on, and it reveals their truth. Truth comes out in the words. So if you want to walk on the moon and they're talking about walking on Earth, it's just leave them alone. It's not worth your time. Gamer Boy, what happened to your Instagram account? Well, I learned a harsh lesson on Instagram. I had one Instagram. It was called the Dominance Academy, and now I created a backup one called Dominance Academy 2. Actually, now it's Dominance Academy _. And what had happened is I got into, I was watching some videos or whatever, and in these videos, the comments of these guys, it was like one of those girls who I guess they would be called a pick me. I guess they're called pick me's, like these women who are like trying to support the suffering of men and all that bullshit. So, there are these guys in there, and they were like, save this woman, she's a treasure, she's the best. Uh, just all this like bullshit, like really simpy stuff. And I went in there, I had a couple of comments, and they weren't rude or anything like that, but it was the type of comment to shift what they're saying, shift what they're thinking, and make them see things from a different perspective. Obviously, if someone's not coming to you looking for a new perspective, they're going to take that as an attack. And I'm assuming they went onto my account, which was public and open, and flagged my content. And if you've seen my content before, it's a bit risque. All right. I wasn't showing any nipples or labia or buttholes or anything like that, but it was risque enough to where when they said I was soliciting sexual services, say that 5 times fast. The algorithm was like, oh, this guy, we got to flag him. And like, so when the AI senses anything like sexual, like trafficking or business or anything like that, they shut it down immediately, just by like automatically by the AI. Then it gets reviewed by humans months later. So right now it's been suspended for 2.5 months. It hasn't been completely removed. I've done some experimenting, so I know that it exists, but it's just in suspension mode. And so perhaps I can get it back. I really hope I do. I've got a friend who knows a girl who works for Meta, and he's looking into it for me. So I really do hope I get it back. There was a lot of cool stuff on there, and a number of followers that I really appreciated. So I hope it comes back. But yeah, that's not going to stop me. I'm still coaching, and I've started a Telegram group, so you can message me on Telegram and join my group. Let's see. I can just tell you, can find me. I mean, it's the Dominance Academy chat. You can look for it there, and that's what's up. Oh boy, what is this? All right. Sorry about that. My girl was she was out drinking with her girlfriends. Oh my god. Guys are flip out when women go out together, and they think that they're gonna be walking home with dicks in their ass. But she was going home and I'm doing this, and she's like, oh, where are you? And that sort of thing. So, anyways, that's that. So, again, watch out for what sort of shit you put in your mind. It can deeply, deeply affect you without you really even knowing it. It's like if you do heroin, that you can feel it. Like you can physically feel what's going on in your body. Like you feel like, well, you feel good and then you feel like shit. And you have common knowledge about the poisonous nature of heroin. So it's a pretty easy thing to sort out. The um the thing about what we listen to, it's a very it's a very gentle process. It's a very gentle process of getting into your mind. Okay, it just sort of massages it in there a little bit over time. And what do they call it, like boiling a frog, right? They say like when you're making frogs, like if you take boiling water and you put frogs into it, like something happens to them, like they immediately freak out and like adrenaline shoots through their body and it like ruins the meat, right? If you're eating like frog legs. And I think what they're supposed to do is you put them in cold water and you slowly raise the water temperature, and then you slowly kill them. And then they don't freak out in the same way and it doesn't ruin the meat. So that's the same sort of thing that happens with some of this content creation, is that it slowly goes into your mind over time, much like that boiling water, and you don't notice it. You really don't notice it until maybe someone points it out to you, but by that time you're too far gone, and you're kind of comfortable in your anger and misery, and that's a shitty place to be. You know, I was on like this, Facebook thing, and someone said, what are some undesirable traits of women? That was the question for this group that I happened upon. And I listed some traits that I didn't like. I don't like poor posture. I don't like women who use curse words. Um, I don't like women who have an inability to listen or learn, bad manners, like just simple shit, right? And you look through these comments, and there were some women on mine who just hated what I had to say, which was, whatever. I don't give a shit. But the comment section was just filled with tons and tons of anger. Like, holy shit, there is a lot of fucking angry and hurt people out there. Like, this is just a little snapshot, like a minuscule snapshot of what's, in, say, even just America. And this is even a bigger reason, an even bigger reason to get your mind right, to understand how you are thinking. And sometimes, if you're too deep in it, you don't even realize that you're there. You don't realize that your thinking is destructive, that your thinking is full of pain, that your thinking is full of anger. Like, some of us have the ability to reflect in that kind of way, but most of us don't. Most humans don't have that ability, because in order to do that, you have to be able to look at yourself objectively and face painful thoughts, face painful realizations. And if you don't have that kind of resolve, then it's going to be difficult for you. Your mind is going to be very resistant. And I mentioned this before, that your mind actually works against your best interests. It does not work in your best interests at all. So you have to force it. You have to grab it and will it with strength, through power, and you tell it what to do. And it feels crazy at first. Like, it feels weird at first when you start controlling your own mind, but then it becomes habitual, and then it turns into steel. And then nothing can get in that you don't want to let in. And now, fill that, fill that arena with the good shit that you stand on, your principles, your values, your codes, your laws, your rules, your constitution, your axe, and your hatchet, and your compass. Fill that arena with these things. And now, when you come across a male colleague, an associate, an acquaintance, a friend, a woman, it has a profound effect on them. Because understand, most guys aren't operating this way. Most guys are not thinking in this manner. They don't, there's no steel in their mind. There is no steel. It's more like Play-Doh or clay. And it gets formed, and if you've ever done work with clay, if you make a sculpture out of clay and you let it sit, eventually all the moisture leaves that form, and it becomes hardened. So it gives the sensation of being firm, but it's actually quite brittle. You just give it a little tap, even with a tiny ball peen hammer, just a little tap. Ball peen's the one with has a ball on one end and the flat surface on the other. Give it a little tap with a ball peen hammer, and it will crumble. It will crumble. And this is the mind of many men, many males, who get stuck in their thinking that's fueled by pain and anger. And it hardens up, and it makes you think, it makes them think that they've got a hardened mind. No, they don't have a hardened mind. They've got a constipated mind. It's not steel. There's no constitution in there. None whatsoever. I mean, if you're having a conversation with a guy, ask him what his codes are. Ask him what his principles are. Guaranteed, the majority of them won't be able to answer it. They'll say, "What do you mean?" Like, that's not a confusing question. People know what principles are, at least. Some of them understand what codes are, but very few of them actually have them and live by them. This is what differentiates things. So imagine women, they're coming across these guys with clay inside, and sometimes it's hardened. And the women, they can feel that. And then they say this shit like, "Oh yeah, you and your fragile ego." They know exactly what they're talking about. These women know exactly what they're talking about. They know that if they give that man a tap in the right place inside him, he will crumble. And they know they can. They absolutely know they can. So it's like, do they bother with it? You didn't spend time to even like interact on the slightest level because they know that there's anger there. They know there's pain there. And it's still, but they in their mind, they've still got this dream, right? They still have this dream and they are hoping. They're hoping that it isn't what it appears to be. That he's gonna be that guy. They really are hoping because they have got guy after guy after guy after guy. And it's just clay, moldy clay, dried out clay, hardened clay. There's no steel. There's no steel fortress in there, and it's not guarding a constitution. Nothing like that. So they give it a try because, women have their hopeless romantic mind as well as males do. Now, unfortunately, it's okay. It's unfortunate for men, but for women, it's okay actually to have these flights of fantasy. They can't help it. And in fact, that's what I love about them, right? Because when you are able to communicate to that and then wield her mind into different places, it's because her mind is primed. It has this base OS that can be influenced by these certain thoughts. And if these certain thoughts are then coming from somebody who knows what they're doing, you can then control their experience and control the experience that they're having of themselves. This is why, like, if you go to a hotel or the beach or whatever, and you see a middle-aged woman and she's reading that book, we know with like Fabio on the cover, and he's got like the glistening muscles, and he's like holding the woman with like the tattered dress or whatever. That woman is getting sloppy wet between the legs right there about the pool. And if you get the notion that she's single, I implore you to go talk to her. Provided you find her attractive, because she's already turned on. You guys are gonna be walking around looking at the books that women are reading, looking to see if it's a smutty romance novel that they got at the drugstore. But I've mentioned this before. It's that they're the highest grossing genre of book in the world. Women eat that shit up like fucking hotcakes with crack. If you really want to make money, start writing that shit. Start writing smutty romance novels. That's how it works. I'm going to be working on something similar, but just fantasies, just a collection of fantasies that I've been writing and my girl's been writing. We're going to put them together in a novel. Nice little coffee table book, something to give your mom. But but the point is see, like, I can talk about these things because I have experience in them. It's a passion of mine. I know about it. It's no big deal. You're not going to hear talk about this sort of thing with content creation. Granted, it's not as exciting as watching women argue amongst each other, argue with men. Okay, but if you're drawn to that, that just shows your feeble mental state. That shows that you've got clay in there. It's because it's like birds of a feather, right? They flock together. Misery loves company, all that bullshit, all those idioms that that say along those lines. That shit, it's true. So if you find yourself drawn to this sort of thing, it should be a fucking bright ass lighthouse effect showing you that showing you that there's something wrong with your mind. If you're being drawn to this stuff, like I hope that you have the ability to sit back and go, fuck, why am I watching this stuff? Why am I drawn to this sort of nonsense? And on the surface, you might say, well, because it's entertaining. I like watching men and women argue about these certain things. I like watching men verbally slam women, or maybe I like watching women verbally slam men. I like this, or I find it entertaining. But what's beneath that? It's not just entertainment for entertainment's sake. The reason being is because it's not just people clowning around. Okay. It's not like uh, uh, watching Jackass or some crazy nonsense like that. When you say, oh, it's pure entertainment. No, this has to do with human interaction when it comes to intimacy and getting together and dating and having sex and having our needs fulfilled and our desires fulfilled. So there's that underlying sort of thing. And you got to ask yourself, why am I drawn to this stuff? What does it give me? What am I trying to find in this? What am I hoping to find? Seriously, you like red pill aficionados, you addicts. What the hell are you trying to find in all that stuff? You know what I think? I think you're trying to find retribution. I think you've got a lot of pain and anger, and you're trying to find retribution through someone else because you've got anger, you've got pain, and you so wish that you could put the woman who hurt you in her place, but you can't because she's no longer with you. And if she was, you're still a pussy who couldn't. And if you were to act on it, you probably hurt the woman. You probably hurt her because you're that weak. You got that hair trigger. There's so much pain in there that with the smallest opening outfloods a rush of rage. And this is where we see women getting beat or whatever, women getting attacked, maimed, gaped, and not the fun kind of gaping. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. It's that it's that pain. It's that pain and that anger that leads you to the same watering holes, seeking some kind of justice for a pain that could be old as weeks, months, years that you still haven't let go of. You still haven't processed that shit. You still haven't just said, fuck it. It doesn't mean anything. Because it doesn't. She doesn't mean anything. Well, shit, because you don't mean anything. Because you don't hold yourself in any kind of high regard. So, of course, you don't mean anything to yourself. That's why you're so seeking her. Because you need her in order to act as a mirror for yourself. So you can feel good and feel alive, feel like, oh, I can see me now. Because this person is reflecting something off. So now I can see myself. I can see that I'm doing something that's of value or is pleasurable to someone else. That's not the way. You're just using another person to fulfill your needs, but they're not really needs. You might characterize it as a need, but it's not a need. It's not even a want. It's that thing that drives addicts. You know, when an addict, it's not, I can't use the word need and I can't use the word want. Just when an addict has that yearning, that itch, that craving. Yeah, maybe it's a craving for that drug of whatever they're addicted to. It's that craving that these guys have. And then they don't recognize it as a craving. They characterize it as a need or a want. I need her to be like this. I need her to do that thing for me. I want her to be this way. And it's just so they can feel better about themselves. And so it's so you can feel better about yourself. If you're one of these addicts listening now. And that's where the mystery lies. The only way through to see the other side is to stop, right? Because if you constantly have a flow of the thing that you're addicted to, you'll never realize that you have this problem because you feel great as long as you have your steady stream, right? This is like where narcissists come in. Narcissists are extremely adept at keeping a steady stream coming towards them from one or multiple women or men if the woman is a narcissist. But they're very good at creating these streams. So they're constantly getting that feed. But for those of you who are not narcissists, I would say take a break, because when you do and you don't have that attention towards the outside, as again, shout out to Steve, looking out the window. You're not sitting there with your face pressed up against the glass, constantly looking, 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 looking. Because when you don't do that, it's almost like without choice, you're magnetically drawn to looking at the mirror, because that's just where the mind goes. It's like, follow, if my mind can't look out, it has to start looking in, and it does it without really having to force it to. It'll just start doing that. And if you can't handle it, then that addiction will be supplied by another addiction. So the same thing, I'll bring it right back to the red pill guys. They had an addiction towards women in one way, and they shifted it to an addiction to women in another way. Because these red pill guys, as much as they have disdain for, so-called female nature, they still are completely addicted to them. Men, on the other hand, we're not addicted to women. There is no draw like that. And I was thinking about this earlier today. I was thinking about love, and I'm like, yeah, I love my woman, but it's different. It's not like it was when I was a young man, and I got so like wrapped up and all these things. It's a totally different sensation. And the only way I can describe it is that I kind of feel the same as I did, except the missing piece is that the love doesn't move me. It doesn't make me do or think or say anything at all. Like no thoughts, no words, no actions are predicated by that love. It doesn't influence me and make me do something. I can choose to do something off of it, but it doesn't make me. Much like when I was, a young man, and I thought I was in love with this girl. I'm in high school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing, and I'm doing like all kinds of crazy, foolish shit. It's no longer like that. It doesn't drive me to do things, say things, and think things. My thoughts, words, and actions are based on my constitution, and my love is this separate lane. It's not. It doesn't affect the constitution. It's a completely different track, and the tracks don't cross over. My thoughts, words, and actions are ruled by my constitution. My love is my love, and that's it. And until you're really, I guess, you get into that, you'll never really understand it. And it's hard because you've got decades of certain types of conditioning. You've got decades of this conditioning that 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 tells you that you should express your love in a certain kind of way. And it's a great way to make money. It really is. I mean, there's a huge sector of Hollywood that has made tons of money over many decades by supporting romantic love via men. And there's other industries as well. I'm just saying, like Hollywood is one of the big ones. So there's just a shit ton of money that's made off of these things. And hey, that's all right. Just that's the game. All right. But it's something that you need to understand, that there's a thought process that you've been conditioned with, that you've brought along with you over many years, that seeped in. Just remember, I was talking about how it gets massaged in gently over time, like boiling a frog. Okay. The same sort of thing. This like male romantic love, how you're supposed to express yourself, how you're supposed to behave, what it's supposed to look like, sound like, feel like, smell like. All right. And that's what you come to believe is your reality. And just as someone can only speak on the things that they've experienced, you can only behave on only that which you know. So if that's all you know, then of course, that's all you're going to behave in. And that mindset, that thinking, it's not yours. None of it is even yours. And you think it is. So you're playing along inside this game, and it suits certain women's wants. And that makes you think that things just should click together. But they don't. And this confuses the fuck out of guys. And they're like, what the hell is going on here? And some of them get hurt in the process, of course. And then boom, they drop down to the red pill. And then if they're really fucking destitute and ugly or whatever the fuck, then they drop even further into the black pill. And they're just like, fuck it, fuck everything. I don't even know why I'm alive. Yeah, but for those guys, they drop into the red pill. They have, what they call the red pill rage. And some of them just stay there indefinitely. Maybe the rage just kind of tapers off a little bit and just turns into like red pill angst. And they just remain this like angsty, I hate the world teenager. And that's their existence. That's their existence till the end of time. And they build up. They have been building up in masses, like hordes of, like a zombie horde. And some of, very clever guys have learned to corral these minds and make a ton of money off of it, write books about it, because they're like, oh shit, people are really responding to this stuff. So if I say a little bit more, what happens? Boom, more response. I say a little bit more, oh, boom, even more response. And it's like, well, if it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. And I'm just going to keep going and just keep going and going and going. At this point, the red pill is fucking bled out. It has bled out completely. Hey, what's up, Lily? Thank you for the comments in Enduring Wayne. Appreciate you. But yeah, it's completely bled out. It's played out, but it's still because it's like, it's not like just because, say, some of the content is sort of like dying down in popularity, it doesn't mean the minds are going to die down with popularity as well. They're not going to follow suit. They're not going to lose their steam once say like a like a cotton, say, or like a paper towel. You can like dip it in some tea and it sucks the tea up into the paper towel. Once that happens, it happens, right? So these guys, they're saturated. They're completely saturated up to the gills. And they're stuck there. They're stuck there having no game. They're stuck there not actually understanding women. And they're filled with anger and pain still, which might have actually been turned up. It's been turned from, anger and pain into fury, rage, hate. Right? And we all know where hate leads. Hate leads to the dark side. Yeah, I'm a late 70s kid, so I grew up with Star Wars. But it's fucking true. It's absolutely true. Hate does lead to the dark side. But you know what? In some of the stories, the novels that were written afterwards, Luke actually goes on to learn the dark side. And you know what that is? That's shadow integration. To really become a well-rounded man, you have to understand and embrace the shadow sides of yourself, the things that you don't actually like, or the things that you're a little bit embarrassed about, or the things that you're afraid to show people or admit to yourself because it's too scary or too violent or too kinky or too weird or too bizarre or straight up disgusting. But until you integrate that part of you, the shadow integration, if you want to learn more about it, just go. It's from Freud. Just look in YouTube and watch some videos about shadow integration. Because when you integrate the shadow, that's when you become more complete. That's when, because you're no longer shunning or embarrassed about a certain aspect of yourself. You're not trying to take part of you and put it in a box. And trust me, if you don't think you have a shadow, you absolutely fucking do. You absolutely do. It's just we've been trained not to look at that, right? Because it's not picturesque for society as a whole. It doesn't make whole society look good. But when you do that, when you separate people from their shadow, or you never introduce them into the ways of integrating it, it has an effect. It has a ripple effect because this shit doesn't go anywhere. It just starts seeping out in other aspects of our consciousness and our behaviors. And it absolutely will start affecting your life and the environments around you. But it's going to be subtle. You're not really going to know how it's affecting you because you're just really, oh, this is my life. This is how I live. But it's not until you really bring that in that you'll truly understand yourself. And when you truly understand yourself, that's when you can start creating. That's when you can actually start creating your internal society, your internal structure, your internal team, your kingdom, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I like calling it the Constitution. But whatever you want to call it, that is the only time that you can start doing this. If you don't integrate your shadow and you start trying to create your internal society, you're fucking up. You're doing it wrong. You're not actually you're not actually doing it. You're cosplaying. Now, it might be a very convincing cosplay, but it's still a cosplay. You're still ignoring part of who you are. So it's kind of like you've got this town and like the mayor's son is like a psychopath. So instead of integrating him into society, or like let's say he has like some mental retardation or something like that, and let's say he's like kind of embarrassed about it or something, he'll take his son and like keep him in a cell because he doesn't look good for the community. It'll make the community look bad. So like let's just take this undesirable and like I'll keep him in the basement. I'll give him good food and water, and he'll have books and stuff like that and TV, but he's never going to be brought out into this community because especially as my son, like, oh no, people will start judging me and they'll think the place is weird, and like I don't know, they don't want him around because he does this, he does that, he sounds like this, he looks like that. So you know what, to keep up appearances, we're just going to keep him in the basement. And that's what most people do with their psyche. And this is why I appreciate the BDSM lifestyle so much, because a lot of it has to do with looking at your shadow. Because it does, in fact, draw in some very strange people with strange habits and, very bizarre kinks. It's not all just like regular stuff where it's like, oh, this person likes to use, paddles or whatever. They like to inflict a little pain. Like that's like kid stuff, right? But there's some really bizarre things that go on in the BDSM lifestyle, but it's all done with the mindset of learning and growth and integration, not separation and putting parts of me in a box to be saved for later, or only taken out during rainy days, or completely ignored so people don't judge it and think weird of me. No, It's all about bringing these things out, taking the boxes, dumping them on the floor and go, look, this is my shit. And within that, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of communication. And that's part of the magic that is a DS relationship between a dominant and a submissive, because many of them, their one of their goals is to go deeper and deeper and deeper, to deeper levels of trust that regular folks can't even fathom. You cannot even fathom the levels of trust that happen in a DS relationship. But that's the goal. Like, they want to push the envelope. They want to see where your edge is in many different ways. And the further you go, the deeper and more connected and more integrated the two people can become. And this is what we're all after, anyways, right? What all this bullshit about, the red pill and, coaches and content and all that bullshit, it's all fueled by the basic human desire for intimacy. And what is that? That's just a deep, meaningful connection. That's all humans really want. They just want a meaningful connection or connections, not to feel completely separated. It starts, however, by not being separated from yourself, learning how to accept who you are. In order to do that, you have to investigate your shadow. As content creators, they're not fucking talking about this. They want you focused with your face pressed up against the glass and go, look, 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 look. Look at all the crazy shit out there. Look at the 304s. Look at the baby mamas. Look at the fucking hypergamy. Look at the marriage statistics. Look at this. Look at that. Look, look, look. And then they make it really entertaining out there to keep your eyes pressed against the glass. And then some of you actually make it outside the glass. And you start becoming these guys. Now you've completely abandoned the mirror. It's back in the house. You're now on the front lawn, engaged with all of these things, participating, creating your own, so on and so on. No. Now you're way out on the front lawn and you're not even near your mirror. That's where they like to keep you. Because that's when you're weak. That's when you're malleable. That's when that clay inside you can be just squished and pressed into any kind of form that they want it. But I'm going to leave you with this. I encourage you to get in front of that mirror. Look at yourself. Look at the things that you're afraid to admit. That you're afraid to admit about yourself. Do a little bit of research into shadow integration and how that works. There's probably a number of videos on YouTube about that shit. I mentioned it before. I'm gonna mention it again. Check out the documentary on YouTube called The Century of Self. It's all about Edward Bernays, and he was associated with Freud, but he did shit on a mass scale. He did experiments on human behavior on a mass scale. We humans are fucking stupid. Humans are so easily manipulated. I don't care how clever you think you are. Humans are extremely malleable on a mental level. And it happens around you, just like the frog being boiled in the water slowly. It happens on a very, very subtle basis over a long period of time, to the point where now you are addicted, but you don't even realize you're addicted. That's how fucking devious and slick that game is. Super slick, super smooth, super fucking strategic. If I could use any more S's, I would. Very strategic. So yeah, I'll leave you with that. If you want out, the best thing to do is to go in. And I know that sounds fucking cliche, but that's really the only path. You know, again, Star Wars analogy. Luke, he wanted to be a Jedi. He wanted to learn how to fucking use a lightsaber and fight Darth Vader and kick the Empire's ass. What did he have to do? He had to go to fucking Dagobah in the fucking jungle with this old fucking turtle looking thing called Yoda. And he's like, "Oh, you want me to just run around with you on my back? What the fuck?" Or like in Karate Kid, when he's like, "Man, yeah, I want to do these things. I want to kick ass like you and do kicks and punches and flying whatever." And then he hands him a brush and he's like, "All right, paint the fence, sand the floor." Like you have to, those are the inward movements. You got to go in first before you can act without. Now, when I tell you that, be mindful of the yeah buts that come in. Yeah, but so and so said, yeah, but I saw this person. They didn't. You be mindful of the yeah buts. Remember, I told you your mind works against you. Your mind wants to keep you exactly where you are because it knows the difficulty and the pain, right? The struggle of looking within and dealing with your shadow. They know that it's a fucking pain in the ass. And humans like comfort. Humans fucking love comfort. We love it. Give us all the drugs and blowjobs and Netflix possible before I die. We don't like discomfort. But men, we enjoy discomfort. It makes us feel fucking alive. Discomfort that we bring upon ourselves is the best discomfort, especially mentally. That's where you got to go. You want to become powerful? You want to be able to walk into a room and people feel things off of you where they're drawn to you. It's because when you are integrated and you're grounded, your mind is made of steel and it's guarding a constitution, it changes everything about you. It changes how you walk, it changes your posture, it changes how you interact with people, it changes everything. And you don't even have to do anything for people to feel that off of you because you're not bothered with the window. You're only bothered with the mirror. And that makes other people press up against their window to look at you, to want to interact with you, to see what you're about. Now, for women, that's what happens too. You're like, what's this guy about? Why is he so, I don't know what, but he's not like these dudes. Like she won't really have a word for you. She won't really have what it is that draws you to them except a feeling that they get. And it's like it's not one feeling, it's a mixture feeling. It's probably, I've never been there because I'm not a woman and haven't been drawn in by, a man, but I imagine it's a mixture of feelings, a mixture of curiosity, arousal, calm, safety, a little danger, mystery, but also no mystery, clarity. Like it's all these things mixed together. And it's like, oh, okay. Let me see what he's about. And then he's not trying to fuck you right off the bat, but seeing if you're worthy of being fucked. And you're like, what? What? It's like pulling the needle across the record. What did he just say? Or what is this vibe that I'm getting from him? And it becomes extremely impactful. It's a totally different world. And it's like not to gain an effect. You truly are this way. You truly are not hell bent on getting pussy. But again, it circles back. It circles back to that shadow integration, becoming whole and one with yourself. Face the fucking demons. You're running out of time. You're running out of time. Don't you want to feel like a complete man before you die? Where you can actually walk this earth in fucking peace. Don't you want to know what that's like? Get to work. You're dead. Like you already have the tag, the expiration tag on the back of your head. You're fucking dead already. Get to work. Stop worrying about what's out the fucking window. It's meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. All the while you're ignoring who you are. You're ignoring yourself. Some of you are even worse and you hate yourself. Like, I'm not looking in the fucking mirror. I'm not looking at that fucking asshole piece of shit motherfucker. That's how some of you feel towards yourselves. But yeah, you got to get in there. You have to get in there. She's not going to fix it for you. She's not going to make you feel better. You will suck her dry and use her up. But it's funny, when all that flips, when you're not that, when you're integrated, grounded, you're at peace. You no longer have that crave. You're not craving anything except yourself. She then becomes practically limitless. Like you can't like squeeze her dry. Because in you being this way, it fills her up. So you being this way goes external, fuels her up. You can, like, for lack of a better term, squeeze and get something in return, but then who you are just fills her right up again. Joyfully. Like, none of this is, painful or manipulative or, feels bad. It's a synergistic sort of scenario. It all starts with you. So if you want to check it out, look at the Century of Self documentary. It's kind of long, but it's good. And do some research into the shadow integration, the Freudian shadow integration. I've also got a Telegram chat. Anyone's welcome to join. I prefer if men were to join only. So sorry, ladies, if you want to join, there's plenty of other chats you can join, but this one's for men. And the link for that can be found on my Instagram in the bio. And that handle is the Dominance Academy _. So thank you guys for listening. And for those of you who catch it on the replay, thanks for the replay. Please just drop a like. I'd appreciate it. All right. Until next time.